I get a little window there, just saying we're recording. And as always, the recording of this will be distributed to those people who registered for the webinar and also just within community sharing for educational purposes. So here we go. If you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type them into the chat. I'm going to try to streamline a little bit. As usual, as I was recreating this presentation, it's sort of a combination of different topics and presentations that I've done in the past. I fear that I am going to talk too much about too many things. So I'm going to do my very best to gracefully streamline in a digestible way, which is great and fun because we're talking all about gut health. And of course, one of the common challenges I think we are all facing right now is digesting life in general. Of course, when we think about digestion and gut health, the normal thing to think about is food and how we're nourishing ourselves. But from the holistic point of view, we really open the screen and open the topic to talk about digestion and gut health in a very broad way. And science now, it's really exciting. Science is providing us with some very beautiful evidence-based facts and follow-up to things and connections that we've seen for thousands of years in holistic practices, but we are beginning to see just how profound the health of our gut. And when we even say the word gut, we're really talking about the large intestine, the small intestine, and then to some extent, the entirety of the digestive tract, which is from your mouth to your anus. So it really is a pathway that traverses the entirety of your body from opening to opening. And so the fact that we're now giving it more importance is actually really exciting. But the reason we're giving it more importance is because many of us are walking around with deficiencies and problems that we might not even recognize as problems, but they are definitely affecting our well-being. And so that inspired the topic behind this educational webinar, within which I hope you're going to learn something new. And also at the end of the webinar, I will present just a little bit about our upcoming Reset and Restore program. It's a 30-day gut reset, health reset program, supplement-based program, but I'll get to that in just a little bit. Is everyone hearing me clearly? Okay, good. Okay, perfect. So for those of you who might not know me, my name is Dr. Molly Kaufman. I am a doctor of acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine. I'm a yoga and meditation instructor, an essential oils specialist, a traveler, definitely a gypsy soul, and an all-over lover of life, and specifically a deep lover and admirer of nature. And sometimes when I hear myself say that, I kind of giggle inside, like, shouldn't we all be lovers and admirers of nature? But we'll see even a little bit in today's presentation that we know our modern lives have pulled us a lot, actually, away from our relationship with nature. And ultimately, because we are human beings and we are nature, we are comprised of the same elements of nature. This is also contributing a bit to some of the suffering and health challenges that we're facing in the modern world. I worked for a long time in integrative medicine in Chicago. I worked in oncology and pediatrics in a hospital system with an integrative medical team, and I also had a private practice. Prior to that, I lived sort of a Renaissance life, from genetic research to dermatological research to becoming a professional dancer in the city of Chicago, and then becoming a medical volunteer in Nepal, and that transitioning me into my life in Europe for the last 11 years. And within this decade, I have been mostly hosting international yoga and wellness retreats and creating a lot of online educational programs. And I think my deepest passion is education. And as I look around the world today as a yogi, as someone interested in wellness, as an integrative medical practitioner, one of the disconnects I definitely see is people are struggling. I think that people are seeing that some of our more modern approaches are great band-aids, but not necessarily fixing the problem. And there's a lot of noise in the wellness community on social media through different programs. And I know that it's a very difficult world to navigate, to figure out, okay, well, if I'm not going to choose a pharmaceutical, what should be my choice and who should I trust and where should I go and where should I reach? And so I've dedicated a good bit of my energy, especially in these last few years, to creating more educational programs with the hope that the information in a more comprehensive way is empowering so that you are better capable to know who to ask or where to go or what to do or what to incorporate into your life to achieve the wellness goals that you are after. So here we go, talking all about gut health. And I always love to start on a positive, but we're just going to look at this list that might overtly seem negative, but it's also a list that has a lot of challenges and states of dis-ease on it that have become very normal in our society. And there's a great quote that floats around, just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. And I don't know if some of you have sometimes heard also this concept of normalizing this and normalizing that. But unbeknownst to most of us that are sort of following the wave of societal patterns, a lot of us are living in states of dis-ease, but calling it normal because we are able to take an over-the-counter medication or we're able to sustain ourselves on, some therapy or another that is limiting the symptoms of the disease, but not actually helping us to heal from the disease. So as you take a moment at the beginning of this webinar and kind of scan through this list, I feel like every single person looking at this screen can choose at least one and say, oh yes, I've had a struggle with that, whether it's hormonal transitions in life, whether it's digestive unrest, right? Just overt digestive unrest, things like IBS, headaches, brain fog, autoimmune conditions are really on the rise, food sensitivities and intolerances, a lot of things happening with our skin as a society. And sort of what has happened with these things that shouldn't be common, that have become common, is that because they've become common, we've sort of taken this attitude of like, are you okay? No, but it's okay. Because I have acid reflux, for example, but I'm taking Prilosec, and so I don't feel it on a day-to-day basis, and so it's okay. But there's nothing okay about any of it. There's nothing okay about having a disease like acid reflux or like IBS and just learning how to live with it, because there are cures for these things and there are healing tactics that work for these things. Chronic allergies or seasonal allergies is another one. Even for people with genetic predisposition to allergies, you can actually cure these things. Now, the challenge for our modern society is that healing often takes time and takes work. And because we've been sort of trained in our mindset of immediacy and kind of putting a Band-Aid over it and subduing the signals of the body, it gets a little tricky to convince people to actually do the work necessary to heal. But some of you have maybe heard me say this before, but as I look at the entire spectrum of life in traditional Chinese medicine and all of the holistic traditions that I've studied, from yoga, Ayurveda, Amazonian medicine, the nature traditions to traditional Chinese medicine, we consider everything as a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so if human beings are really trending in the direction of disease, to me, it's absolutely no wonder that we look around also to the ecosystems and nature, and we see an increasing state of disease there. And so in the Buddhist tradition and some of these deep meditative traditions, there definitely is this idea of service, of looking at the world around us and trying to change the world, and act of service and everything. But in every single one of these traditions, it's recognized that if we don't tend to ourselves, if we don't take the time to really heal ourselves as individuals, then it's very difficult for us to externalize that into the world at large. So one of the things that I'm aspiring to do in these years of my medical profession, and all that my teachers have transmitted to me that now I'm doing my best to pay forward, is to peel us away from this "no, but it's okay" attitude, because none of this is okay, and all of this can actually be rebalanced. But from that whole list, what's interesting for us, especially tonight for this particular webinar, is that science is now able to back up with evidence-based information what we've known for thousands of years in the holistic traditions, especially in traditional Chinese medicine, but we're now able to scientifically see the pathways by which every single thing on the prior list, on that previous slide, every single thing on this slide, and many more things, all have a common denominator of the health of the digestive system and the health of the gut. So I'm certainly not going to tell you tonight that if you heal your gut, you're going to be able to heal everything. However, we're learning more and more just how important this piece of the puzzle is. And so as a way to start a healing journey, or gain new insight into a healing journey, or to solve some of the seemingly unsolvable problems, we look to the gut. We look to that central pathway of your physiological body, and we see what more there can be done there, so that we can also clear some more space to understand what might be lingering after that digestive axis, is what we often call it, is healed and more balanced. Another thing that we're facing, and again, I'm sorry to start a webinar with sort of the challenges, but if we don't define the challenges, then we don't really know what we're doing with our actions. So we sort of have to start here, defining where are our imbalances and what are we facing in our modern world. And actually, a lot of the diseases, especially from that list, are actually normal responses to abnormal circumstances. And I already mentioned earlier that we as human beings, in, I think, the aspiration of convenience and also consumerism, have extracted ourselves from nature to a really great extent. How we live with our air conditioners, our heaters, our clothing, a lot of things that aren't made of natural materials anymore, our cars, we're moving at speeds that the human body wasn't necessarily meant to be moved at. Aside from quantum physics, if you're into that kind of stuff, different topic for a different day. But actually, a lot of the diseases that we're seeing that have become common, that shouldn't be normal, are the body responding in the appropriate way that it's meant to respond to a stressor, to an imbalance. But because our lifestyles don't bring the things that trigger these responses in a one-time manner, meaning you don't come into your house with your air conditioning on only one time and then you go back to living with nature. You're coming in and out of your air-conditioned house. And I'm sorry, maybe I know for us Europeans, air conditioning isn't as common. So I'm just using that as an example, but there are many, many examples of that, right? We're coming in and out of an altered sort of environment. And another thing is the processed foods that we're eating these days. Another thing is actually a lot of the over-the-counter and pharmaceutical medications that we're introducing to the body. The body has a response to this, but because that becomes the new normal environment, or the new normal associations that we're putting our body into on a consistent basis, the body doesn't have the ability to readjust back into a normal state. And so again, the body is doing, actually in a lot of cases, what it's meant to do. The inflammatory response is a very positive and necessary thing for us to remain alive. But because we're introducing so many inflammatory elements into our lifestyles, the inflammation doesn't have a chance to retreat after it does the job that it's meant to do. And this is the foundation of a lot of the health challenges that we're facing, including, of course, because we're working in the holistic realm, or you're working in the holistic realm. If you're in my sphere and in my community, this resonates on the physical level, but we can never extract the physical from the mental and the spiritual. So ramifications of this on all levels. And here I give the example of IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, a very common disease. It stems from a very natural response to stressors, poor diet, our inability to handle stressors in a healthful way. And really all modern medicine has to throw at IBS is antidepressants, actually thinking that it is something mental. And we know that there is a mental component. We know that there's an emotional component, but it creates changes in the body that are very real and very physiological. And this is something that when we get into the realm of gut health becomes a very curable and treatable thing when we look at all aspects of why the body is responding the way that it's responding. Another common one, and I'm just going to kind of breeze through this because that was already a lot of talk about disease and disharmony and imbalance. But again, good to note where we might be starting any given journey. Leaky gut is another one that you hear very commonly. Oh, I have leaky gut. People say to me all the time like this, oh, I have leaky gut. Like it's no problem. No, but it's okay. But leaky gut is a huge problem because if you have leaky gut, you are creating continuously systemic inflammation. And we know how many chronic inflammatory diseases we're facing as a society these days. But leaky gut is another thing that is very highly curable and treatable with lifestyle and with natural methods. But we also have to look at the other side, and that is that so many commonly used lifestyle habits and even interventions like NSAIDs, so this is your ibuprofen, your anti-inflammatory things. I know a lot of populations of people that I meet that are like, oh, I have pain, I'll take an ibuprofen. Oh, I'm experiencing pain in my elbows, so I take ibuprofen every day to help with the pain. Well, it is true that ibuprofen or paracetamol, acetaminophen, these things can be really useful in the right time and place and dose. But just for example, your body, your liver, and your kidneys can handle 250 milligrams of ibuprofen per week. Per week. So most people I know are taking 400 to 800 milligrams, maybe even twice a day, every single day. And this has physical ramifications on the body. It's just kind of one example, but nutrient deficiencies are stress response. And, you know, I always like to say stressors are not bad things. Stressors are things we come in contact with that create a response in our body. And this is also why having lifestyle things hand in hand with any healing strategy like mindfulness, meditation, yogic exercises, walking meditation, whatever that might be, because all of those things lend themselves to us learning a healthier and more fluid stress response so that okay. And hopefully we are coming back. Let me get the PowerPoint back in there. Sorry about that, gang. My internet was a little unstable, but here we are. Are you hearing me again? I just changed routers, so hopefully we won't have that issue again. Uh, but let's see. So, you know what's so funny is that it dropped right when I was talking about our ability to fluidly handle stress, right? And so when you think about it, so like I couldn't have chosen a better moment for my Wi-Fi to drop this Zoom call because in essence, you can think about all the times in your life right? Where maybe something like that would have happened and your whole body would have tightened and your whole, like your whole being like, oh my God, oh my, and we tend to have these sometimes, all of us, really all of us, even the most enlightened of us, and even those of us who are practicing and doing our best to create. So that's a very human interaction. But what we are starting to know is that those unhealthy stress responses, that tension, the emotional trauma, the emotional sort of undulation in a way that's very severe is actually affecting the gut microbiome, is actually affecting the health of your digestive system. So it isn't even only things that we're ingesting or things that we're coming in contact with, but it's also our behavior that has been shown and continues to be shown to have an effect on the microbiome and the gut and the well-being of the entire digestive system. So why is gut health so important? Well, probably you're starting to get an idea, because if you even connect in your mind that all of those sort of common, that shouldn't be common or normal challenges that we're facing as a society have a common denominator of the health of the gut, we start to really see its importance and the role of the gut in all aspects of our well-being. But of course, when we just kind of break it down into segments, we have the nourishment aspect. Everyone knows some form of you are what you eat. Literally, what we ingest in our body becomes the pieces of your cells. Like very literally, what you choose to ingest becomes your physical body. And how that resonates determines how you feel in your human capsule from day to day. And if any of you have endeavored to, I know that there might be a couple people even on this call who have already done a 30-day program with me. And so most of us have some sense of what it feels like when we eat a little bit more cleanly, when we get good rest, when we're in an environment that makes us feel good, right? There's kind of an ease to being in the body. And conversely, most of us really know what it feels like to eat too much birthday cake or to, indulge in too much pizza. And while it might be temporary, and hopefully it is temporary because everything in moderation, right? Like you should enjoy a good pizza from time to time, just not all the time. But when you overindulge, that you have the real sensation in your physical body of not feeling so good. And that definitely affects our mental wellness, our emotional wellness, and of course, our physical wellness. So that kind of root foundation of why gut health is so important is it's our ability to take in. Oh, just gonna try to, oh, there you go. Thanks for muting. Is to like take in, assimilate, and use those nutrients that we are ingesting to become you, all of the parts of you. But again, from the holistic realm, we want to think of digestion as something broader. And again, science is really starting to back us up in the most beautiful ways. So we don't only ingest food, do we? We ingest what we apply on our skin. So if you apply a lotion that's synthetic or has toxins in it, 60% of that gets into your bloodstream and then has to be filtered by the system. Yeah, sometimes people aren't aware of just how much that can be, but gets into the system, has to be detoxified by the liver and the kidneys, and also is now being shown to affect the gut microbiome. Also, we know on a societal level, our relationships, our environments, how much time we're spending on devices, right? All of the possible interactions that we have in life, we can consider that we are ingesting them. Because we are ingesting them, we're needing to assimilate, whether energetically or in physical form, what is useful, what is not useful. And when we ingest too many things that aren't useful, because the body has its own needs, we start incorporating into our body and into our spirit and into our, like the layer of us that is our mental health layer. We start assimilating toxic things, because that's all we're giving our body to ingest. Of course, gut health is also important in our vitality, kind of what we just talked about, the example of times when you get enough rest versus times where you don't get enough rest. A lot of people don't know that your metabolism, your metabolic state is directly affected by your gut health and the gut microbiome, our biological age, our inflammatory response, our immune system. It is said that between 70 and 90% of our immune system and the functionality of the immune system is determined by the health of your gut. So that's a big deal, right? If we're walking around life doing things that are interfering with the health of our digestive system, then our literal protection about or towards things that we really don't want entering into our system in any of the ways that we wouldn't want something to enter into our system, including relationships, right? Our ability to kind of like say no when we need to say no, setting energetic boundaries. This is all part of the immune system in holistic medicine. And most of our ability to exhibit all of those beneficial things is directly related to the health of the gut. And of course, in the microbiome, and we're going to get into what the microbiome is in just a second. There are little critters in your body, bacteria, viruses, and fungi, who are helping to produce very important enzymes, minerals, and sometimes even vitamins for the system. So this is sort of the foundational reasons, in addition to everything that we've already said, that the gut health is so important. And we sort of started from the back end, right? Looking at all of the ways that our gut health is being affected negatively by our choices in life. But there are also some very real-time things that we're navigating in the world. So this is from a New York Times article in 2013 saying that our food sources, there's a lot of talk right now about our food sources not carrying the same amount of power that they did 50 or even 100 years ago. This is a trend that has been happening actually for thousands of years as we moved away from being hunter-gatherers to creating, what we call civilization and society, beginning agriculture. And this is in no way, shape, or form saying that agriculture is bad or that farmers are bad. My husband's a farmer. I rely on farmers around me, even in the village that I live in, right, to provide me with the food even that I eat. So if you got stuck there, just try to look beyond just a little bit. And that is that the way we have pushed our civilization and the way we have pushed the evolution of how we are living no longer matches our genetic sort of predispositions. And there is also mounting evidence and people really looking at this more intensively, showing that a lot of the chronic diseases that we're seeing, sort of again, normal response of the body to very abnormal circumstances, our genes don't evolve as fast as we have been able to change life around us. So the industrial age, how we produce food, what we're investing, devices, all of the conveniences, air conditioning, like all of these things. And again, not to say they're bad, but when we look through the lens of holism and we look through the lens of healing, we want to become friends with all of the things that we know might be affecting our well-being. So it's in no way to list these things to say you should turn your air conditioning off, you should suffer in the heat, you should never ride in a car again, you should never ride, like that is sort of the extreme of the conversation. But the real conversation here is just beginning to, in a more educated and intelligent way, identify and really become aware of the things that are having an effect on us, why they're having an effect on us. And from that place of knowing, without any attachment, we hopefully begin to make better and more enlightened choices for the state of today's topic, the gut health and the gut microbiome. But as you can see, that really has very broad ramifications on our state of well-being, our state of happiness, and moving ourselves out of such extreme states of disease. So also just acknowledging that the genome does not evolve as fast as we've been able to sort of quote unquote evolve life. And so again, the body is having normal responses to very abnormal circumstances according to nature. The other aspect that we also just want to look at, and that we look at more in depth in all of the courses, but also especially the 30 days, is that we are able to really see the mechanisms behind emotional states and the physiological response. And again, this is something that we've never separated. We've never even considered separating in the holistic traditions, traditional Chinese medicine. Every organ system has its physiological functions, has its season, has its taste, has the areas of the body that it governs, has its associated positive emotions, has its associated negative emotions. So when we are diagnosing something in traditional Chinese medicine, there's no division. If we're looking at the physical, we are also looking at the emotional, the psychological, all of it. But because we have trended in the direction of separation in our modern systems, it's really nice to know that, again, research, especially in the realm of trauma and mental health, is showing that our sort of subdued conditioning toward the expression of emotions, the healthful expression of emotions, affects your gut microbiome, is having an effect and creating imbalances on all of the microorganisms within your body. And when we remain, again, in those states for a prolonged period of time, the body doesn't have a chance to do the healing that it would otherwise know how to do all on its own. So again, abnormal circumstances, normal response of the body, but very abnormal circumstances. So we know more and more, and this is why it's so important also to take into consideration in any healing process, but also in the process of discovering, what does it all mean? What are the associations? What are the things affecting us? Our ability to express emotions healthfully is very necessary for the balance even of the physical body. And when we do experience trauma or abuse, and right, this gets into a deeper realm way above and beyond the scope of this webinar, but it's good to mention these things do have an impact on the physical body. And when we don't take the time to heal these traumas, or the result, right, like the stressors or emotional stressors of abusive situations, or even negative self-talk, when we don't take the time to heal these things, it does create deep imbalances in the body that can result one day in more difficult diseases to navigate. So when we think about the microbiome, when I say microbiome, and this is something we really take a deep dive into in the 30-day program, we're talking about all the microorganisms that live inside your system in a symbiotic way. Symbiosis means that everyone lives together, everyone has their role, everybody is assisting your system to function well. And a lot of us don't know that we have bacteria and virus and fungi inside our system that are actually the reason we stay alive in most circumstances. They're all working together to our benefit. And as we've kind of taken a big umbrella look, we now know that some of these things, and even more, right? Sugar, poor sleep, improper diet, pharmaceuticals, toxins, synthetics, alcohol, cannabis, they are all taking what I love to call like the Amazonian forest of our existence, which is the microbiome, which is the left side of this picture, right? The rich diversity of the forest, creating the things that we need to stay alive. And we know now through both holistic paradigms, as well as now the support of a lot of evidence-based and research-based facts, that what happens is that these things kept for a long enough time in our daily habits or in our daily rituals, or even sometimes subconsciously or unconsciously in the way we approach life, they are pretty much destroying all of this necessary part of our well-being. And this, again, is the foundation for almost everything. So welcome to those of you who are signing on a little late. This is being recorded, so I will share the recording with everyone who has registered. So if you're interested, you can go back and kind of catch up with the first half. And the last thing that I'll say here, because we sort of, again, took the approach of sort of like, what challenges are we facing? We are really facing kind of a chemical, I hate to use the word pandemic, but it really is. We have so many chemicals and synthetic substances pumped into our environments, our products, and a lot of them are like very innocent. You know, you go to the supermarket and you buy some shampoo, and no one is like, not too many people, more and more, are talking about the fact that there are a lot of chemicals in there that, if you use them on a regular basis, can create some really serious problems in the body, and specifically disrupting the balance of your gut microbiome, your gut health. And again, the foundation of the gut health is everything for us. It's our immune system, it's our circulatory system, it's our mental health, right? All of those different ways that the gut microbiome is the foundation for the wellness on almost all other levels of our being. And there are three main ways that we're interacting with the world in general: by touch, by ingesting, and by breathing the air. And so even for some of some of you watching this might say, oh, well, I'm so lucky to live in a small village, or maybe you live in a European community where there are, you know, different laws and regulations around protecting you from some of these things. But inevitably, because we know that, you know, our air is shared and products are shared, and if you're doing transportation or even public transportation, it does definitely help instead of all of us getting into cars. But the real-time reality, that was not very eloquently said. The reality that we are all facing collaboratively is that we are exposed to way more chemical substances than our body really can handle in the natural way that it's intended to handle it. And so a lot of things are getting into our soil, a lot of things are getting into our homes via cleaning products, etc. And so we're really overexposed. And why might we care? Well, out of the thousands of chemicals that are being pumped into the system untested, those that are tested are shown to have really negative effects on our system. Neurotoxins, right? Like alcohol is also a neurotoxin. So when we're taking too much alcohol, we're damaging the system, something that we kind of tackle when we talk about the 30-day program, or if you follow along the 30-day program, sort of the whys and hows around these seemingly innocent social things that actually really can have a big impact on us. But staying in the realm of these chemicals and synthetics, endocrine disrupting. So this is your hormones, right? Hormonal function in the body can be disrupted by introducing too many toxins at the same time or over a long period of time. The immune system, cancers, the liver and the kidneys, which are our natural detoxification organs. So in addition to kind of all of the other challenges that I introduced you to at the beginning of the webinar, we also have this very real-time challenge. The good news in all of this, whew, finally, we make it to some great news, is that your body is a superhero. Like, really, literally, the human body is designed to heal. Within you, in a balanced and healthy state, when we are taking care of ourselves, when we're doing our due diligence, when we're doing our best to take care of ourselves, your body is built to handle many of the stressors that we've already mentioned. So if you ingest a toxin or something synthetic, your liver, your lungs, your kidneys, right, they're all built to detoxify that. But again, unfortunately, our modern lives have trended in a direction where we're just completely overloaded, really from all areas, from processed foods, again, to over-the-counter drugs, to the way that we're living, not really in harmony with the seasons. We're not getting enough rest. Most of us don't have a very healthy stress response on any given day, depending on how you're cultivating your spiritual practices and your health practices, mindfulness practices, but ultimately your body is a superhero. And so this for me is the beacon of hope of wait a minute, I was born into a vessel that knows how to heal itself. I was also born into a moment where somehow we've created a life around us that is challenging our body's ability to do what it's meant to do almost all of the time. And so this is where we enter into first lifestyle things. So your body is a superhero, but it's a superhero when we're really choosing carefully, right? Like our exercise, getting physical movement, how we're connecting to spirituality and mindfulness. Are we getting enough rest? There are so many things that could go on this slide, but I just this is the lemon sorbet slide, right? Like all of sort of the inspiration behind so simple things that don't necessarily require money, that don't necessarily require anything but your willingness to take care of you, with a little bit more education about the things that are affecting us negatively. And what's really wonderful is that for thousands of years, civilizations have recognized that the human body has its limits. And so when you think about life thousands of years ago, if you can even conceive of it, sometimes I have a difficult time conceiving of it, even when I'm teaching philosophy and history of yoga and traditional Chinese medicine, right, which extends so many thousands of years that I have a difficult time conceiving of it. But when you think back even to before the Industrial Revolution, maybe even a couple hundred years ago, when there were still tribal cultures and we were still living in shamanic cultures, which means that we were still very governed and living in harmony with nature. Even then, populations understood that the human body has its limits. And so things like fasting and cleansing and, taking rest and taking pause and taking silence and taking quiet, these things have been built into medicinal traditions for thousands of years out of the wisdom of knowing that, yes, our body is a superhero. And yes, just like everything, it has its limits. And again, in today's modern world, we're sort of exceeding the number of possible challenges that we're facing, which is why we start creating programs like the one I'll present to you in just a second, like this 30-day reset and restore program, to assist us in just kind of starting to get back on track, and hopefully also empowering you with a deeper sense of knowing and understanding the hows and whys and relationships to all of the things that we're navigating and how it is affecting us on a physical level, physiologically, how the body is functioning under the pressure of all of these things, how it affects us in the realm of mental health and emotional well-being. So why might we want to reset? Well, I think I've laid it out for you pretty well up until now, hopefully so. You'll get the recording. So if you want to review any of this, or of course, you're always welcome to reach out to me personally via email and ask your questions if you can't stay for questions at the end of the webinar. But why might we need to reset? Well, again, what's happening is most of us are just overwhelmed with toxic influences. And again, this can be too much time on devices. It can be from our food sources. It can be from the way that we've decided to handle the common cold or acid reflux, right? Too many over-the-counter things. It can come in a lot of ways. It can also come innocently just from living in the world, the air we're breathing, the soil we're walking on. Unfortunately, these things are becoming more and more polluted, and our bodies just aren't able to keep up. And so this is the trend that is creating that whole big list that I showed you at the beginning of the webinar. A lot of those things, a lot of those maladies that have become common, but just because they're common doesn't mean they're normal. They've become common because toxic influences have become really common. But we can actually combat this, and we can actually start to choose to live differently by starting to choose to heal ourselves first. So now what I'd love for you to do after all of that information, right? And even this, you're ingesting, we're ingesting, we're ingesting information, we're here, technology together, right? Like all of this is affecting our state of being in some sense, right? So we're always interacting with life, and that has a direct effect on our well-being. And now I'd love for you to just take a moment and imagine yourself thriving. Maybe you came to this webinar because there's something in particular that piqued your interest. Maybe you are challenged by one of the things on that first list. Maybe it's a digestive unrest. Maybe it's an autoimmune disorder. Maybe it's chronic allergies. Maybe you just feel like you have a thick layer of something on your body that you don't know what it is and you can't seem to get rid of no matter what you do. And so now for just a moment, whatever it is that did bring you here to this webinar, I'd love to invite you to like soften your shoulders, maybe even take a big deep breath for a moment, right? Breathing, one of the most intimate interactions we have with the world. Like just imagine what it can feel like, or what it would feel like to really be thriving, to really be feeling good. And even if you just get a millisecond of it, that's amazing and that's great. That's our little candle of hope that we return to again and again, that it is possible to feel good, and it is possible to thrive, and it is possible to break free from the conditioning of society that says a lot of these common challenges to our health are normal, because they're not. And so I'll quickly introduce you to one of the things that I have created with the help and support of one of the companies, the essential oil and supplement companies that I partner with, doTERRA, this 30-day reset and restore program. So the program itself is 30 days. And we follow the phases of the moon. In the first phase, which is 10 days, so each of the phases are 10 days, what we do is we go in with supplemental support, and we open all of the detoxification pathways of the body. So inevitably, when we are overloaded with toxic influences, again, no matter where they come from, we create congestion in the system. And when there's congestion in the system, things start to not function optimally. And it's just like you can imagine, right, on a really big freeway, or if you get stuck in a traffic jam, it's like you as that little car, like you know that there, you know, like maybe there is an exit somewhere, but there's so much congestion around you that you can't naturally solve that problem. You have to just stay in the congestion until some pathway either ahead of you or behind you opens up. Does that make sense to everyone? And so we do the same thing with the body, because most of us are walking around now with some level of toxic buildup in the body. So we go in with the first set of supplements in the first 10 days, and we open the detox pathways closely related to the lungs and the liver and the kidneys specifically, as well as the skin, these natural ways that your body already knows how to release toxins, but in the state of congestion, just sort of tightened and kind of stopped doing its job because it couldn't keep up. So we go in with some added support, natural, bioavailable, whole foods based supplements. And we just support these organ systems in saying, hey, look, we're giving you a little extra support. We're giving a little extra power. So supporting the healthy detoxification processes of the body, and also opening the pathways so that the toxic overload can begin to be released from the body. Then, with all of that open and activated in phase 2, which is the reset portion of the program, we go in with a different set of supplements, and we get really deep into the gut, the digestive system, especially seeking out parasitic influences and the overgrowth of candida, which is a very common result of disharmony in the microbiome or disharmony in the gut, and a really common denominator for almost all inflammatory diseases, as well as cardiovascular diseases we're starting to see. So in the second phase of this reset program, we go in with a different set of supplements and we begin to clear out the deeper residue of toxic buildup and the residue that accumulates when organ systems stop functioning optimally and healthfully and in a balanced state. And then with all of that clearing out in the first 20 days, in the third phase, we go in with probiotics and also with a supplement that's a very powerful antioxidant. So antioxidant, right, getting the free radicals out of the body, which are often just the natural result of more healthy metabolism. So as we re-kickstart the system, it's going to start functioning at a heightened level, at a more optimal level. And so we go in the third phase with support of replanting the foundation of your gut health with a very powerful probiotic, and also with another supplement that's helping to clear away the free radicals that are a result of your system just kind of getting a big kickstart to make sure that we keep everything balanced. The program actually can be extended to 50 days. That's something that I'll talk more about if and when you decide to opt in to joining us for this program. But I just want to again mention the moon is here because we do start the program on the new moon. And we work with the phases of the moon because, again, we are nature. And nature, which is your entire microbiome and any disharmony that could be lingering inside of you right now, is also comprised of nature. And we know that nature, by way of watching the tides of the sea, is affected by the phases of the moon. And so we start on the new moon for the activation phase, so that by the time we get into the heart of the reset phase and the parasitic influence clearing phase, we are in the full moon phase of the moon. And this is because parasites are most active during the full moon. Now, if you've traveled to a foreign country, if you've been eating a lot of fish, if you've been eating a lot of meat from the supermarket, it might be that your system is inundated with some parasitic influences. So the only thing I'll mention about the 50-day program is that when parasites die, their very last offering to the world is to lay eggs. And so if you think, and you can talk to me about this personally if you're considering joining us for this program, if you think that might be part of what you are dealing with in your system, you might consider doing the 50 days, because we just repeat phase 2 and phase 3 for another 20 days to really fully eliminate any possible parasitic influences from the body. But we do work with the phases of the moon. This is an important part of this program for the reasons that I've just stated, because also nature has its ups and downs with the phases of the moon, and we want to catch everything energetically in the right place so that we have the biggest and deepest impact. And so what is included in the program? 30 days of high quality, whole food-based bioavailable supplements. That was a mouthful. What does that mean? Similarly to almost everything we're navigating in the world of essential oils, synthetic adulterated things, to the world of supplements, so many supplements on the market are synthetic, which means that they might stimulate some action in your body. They might still do some good, but pretty much you're peeing out the majority of what you're taking in because the body doesn't recognize synthetic things. So again, I've partnered with this company that makes doTERRA, that is also the essential oil company that I work with, because they are, through research, really showing the quality and the bioavailability, meaning your body can recognize the supplements and really use them to the greatest extent your body is ready to use them, which is really important if you are going to think about introducing more into your body to support a healing process. Really important that your body can recognize what you're putting into it so that you get actually the positive impact that we're hoping to get. I hold a private WhatsApp group for the 30 days of the cleanse. This is a place where you can have access to me throughout in a group manner, meaning you can ask questions, you can share recipes. It's a place to feel connected. It's a place to feel human. When you have your challenges, when you have your coffee withdrawal headache, you can write in the chat and I can offer some suggestions how to get through it. You can, feel the camaraderie, and it becomes a very important part of the experience because there is very deep accountability and inspiration in moving as a community versus trying to do this as an individual and keep your inspiration up for 30 days to continue and continue and continue. We will have 5 live educational Zoom sessions. We'll cover topics like inflammation, like digestion, like candida, parasites, both from the scientific side as well as the holistic side. So really getting into, again, that mind, body, spirit axis and giving you a deeper understanding of what influences these things and why it might be relevant to you. And the whole idea there, again, is you will be going through a healing process by taking the supplements. But to me, almost the most important part of the program is the educational part, because I would love for you not only to have the physical experience of feeling better, but also to feel empowered with real cohesive knowledge to make better and better choices as you continue your path past the 30 days. Also, because I can't ever help myself, I'm usually introducing you to mindfulness practices, sharing meditations with you, helping you to live a more non-toxic lifestyle. So many things that just get inserted into the experience of the 30 days. They're there for you to interact with or not interact with, depending on how deep you want to go. We do our best to follow a plant-based diet during the 30 days. There's a deeper explanation of that once we start the program, but the long and the short of it is mostly to do with food sourcing, that a lot of our meat and fish are carrying things that are toxic to the body these days. And so in the endeavor to give the body time to heal, we do our best during the 30 days to eliminate all of the things that we know are contributing to poor gut health and to the negative inflammatory reaction that most of our bodies are having to the modern world. And then included also in the program is a 30-minute exit consultation with me. So I won't leave you hanging. Once we make it successfully through the 30 days, we can hop on a Zoom together one-on-one so that I can help you know what are the best next steps for you. All of this is accessible to you by one, investing in the kit of supplements, and then paying a small participation fee for all of the things housed side by side with the program. And then to take note of important dates. This is all on my website, so we don't really need to spend too much time there, but important for you to know that there is a place for you to start. There's a place for you to connect in. There's a place for you to start taking care of your body in a more hopefully enlightened and holistic way, side by side, with an opportunity to deepen your knowing and intelligence around holistic living and holistic health and holistic healing, so that we together set a deeper, no, that's probably not the right word, just I would say a more enlightened and firm template upon which we can actually really change, I believe, how we're navigating life. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share, and hopefully it's not going to take you away from me as you do. And whoa, we're right at an hour. So I would love to thank you for joining. I would love to thank you for those of you who are able to be present. It really does make a difference. I know, I will be the first one to talk about the number of hours of device use and how it really is affecting our well-being. And I am also one of those that really relies on devices right now as a global practitioner to connect with my community. So I'm very appreciative to those of you who have taken the time to be here in person. And for those of you who are watching the recording, please feel free to reach out via email once you've watched the recording with any questions or clarifications. And as a last offering here, as we close this webinar, I'd love to just open the floor to any questions that you might have burning or not burning in your mind about anything that I presented tonight or today. Anything that I can answer, clarify, speak to a little bit more? Let me see, I think there were a couple. Okay, great, thanks guys. Yeah, anything? Thanks, Jamie, for joining. So nice to see you. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions, if you have a question and you're like trying to figure out how to unmute yourself, raise your hand and I can help you with that. Okay, Lee, that's what I was wondering if you were searching to unmute, so I just asked you to unmute, so that should be a little eeasier.
Hi.
There you go.
Hi,
Yeah.
Molly.
Hi.
I will be in Africa in October. So
Okay.
joining in October will not be possible because it will be very hard to contact you and
Yeah.
do the detoxification. I
Yeah.
was wondering, do you run this program after or later as well?
Yeah, so I run the program like this live twice a year, once in the autumn and once in the spring. However, if you would like to do it in a self-guided manner, that's absolutely possible. And I can get you set up with the recordings, everything else, if that's of interest to you. And I also have done it with people privately. And so that can be an option as well through the realm of my holistic health coaching business. I have carried a couple of people through privately. I will say that there is really something to doing it with a group. I think that there's a different energy around it and people tend
Yeah.
to be more successful with it. So one thing that I'm offering this time that I have not offered before, and I don't know what your situation will be in Africa, but you can sort of register for the course with a small participation fee to join the Zooms. I don't know if that would be possible for you. No.
No.
Okay.
Oh,
So
there will be no connection.
no
So
connection. Okay. So
no,
then, so
no,
then
that will not be possible.
yeah, so
No.
then you can definitely do it in a self-guided manner. You can
Mhm.
also talk to me about doing it in a privately guided manner. Or the next time, sometimes with my bigger wellness community, we do offer it in January. It's a little bit different because we do it as a group. There are no live Zooms, but there is the WhatsApp chat. So done a little bit differently, but yeah, if you want to have, this whole experience, then this will happen again in the spring, usually around March, April.
Okay.
And or if you're again wanting to do it, with the videos, with the recordings, with my guidance, there is a way to do it self-guided and I can help you through that process when you're ready.
Can you send me the different programs that I can choose and then come
Absolutely.
back to you?
I
That
would
would
be
be
more
great.
than I would be more than
Okay.
happy to, Leah. So good to see you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be.
great. All right. Um, Wonderful. Anyone else who's here with us? Vasu, I know you're in for a second round, so that's wonderful, and Maureen as well. All right, gang. Well, again, thank you so very much. I'm gonna go ahead.